The pain in Harper Mitchell's right arm radiates from her wrist to her shoulder in waves so intense that her vision blurs at the edges. She sits on the cold bathroom floor of the apartment she shares with Derek Callahan, her back pressed against the locked door, her phone clutched in her trembling left hand. Blood from a split lip drips onto the cracked screen, mixing with the tears she can't seem to stop. Through the door, she hears Derek pacing. His footsteps are heavy, deliberate, the way they always are after these episodes. After he transforms from the charming marketing executive everyone at the office admires into this thing that lives behind his eyes. This monster that only she sees. Harper. His voice carries that false gentleness that makes her skin crawl. Baby, open the door. Let me explain. You know I didn't mean it. Her arm throbs with each beat of her heart. She'd felt the bone snap when he twisted it behind her back, heard the sickening crack that echoed through their bedroom. The sound that finally broke through 2 years of excuses and second chances, and believing that he'd change if she just tried harder to be perfect. She needs to call someone. Her mother, her best friend Natalie, anyone who can help her escape before Derek decides that locked doors are just another obstacle to overcome. Harper's fingers shake as she opens her phone's messaging app. She types her mother's number from memory because she can't see clearly enough to scroll through her contacts. The pain in her arm makes her vision swim, makes everything feel distant and dreamlike. Harper, Mom, I need help. Derek broke my arm. I'm locked in the bathroom. Please come get me. 847 Riverside Drive, apartment 12B. She hits send and leans her head back against the door, closing her eyes against the fresh wave of agony that washes through her. Outside, Derek's footsteps have stopped. The silence is somehow worse than the pacing. Her phone buzzes almost immediately. Unknown. Number, address received. I'm on my way. Do not open the door for anyone. Uta 15 minutes. Harper stares at the message, confusion cutting through her pain. That's not how her mother texts. Her mother uses full sentences, proper punctuation, adds unnecessary emojis to everything. This response is clipped, efficient, almost military in its brevity. She looks at the number she'd typed. Horror floods through her chest as she realizes her mistake. She transposed 2 digits, 847 instead of 874. She sent her desperate plea for help to a complete stranger. Harper, I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore. The response comes back instantly. Unknown. Number, I don't ignore people in danger. Which apartment? Is he still outside the door? Harper, who is this? Unknown. Number, someone who can help. Apartment number? She should tell this person to mind their own business. Should call 911 like a normal person instead of accepting help from some random stranger who might be just as dangerous as the man she's trying to escape. But something about those messages, the calm authority in them, makes her type back. Harper, 12B. He's in the living room. The door is locked, but he has a key. Unknown number, 12 minutes. Hold on. If you're already hooked on Harper's story, drop an emoji in the comments and hit subscribe. This gets intense, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Harper's arm sends fresh waves of agony through her body every time she moves. She cradles it against her chest, feeling the unnatural angle of her wrist, the swelling that's already beginning. She needs ice. She needs medical attention. She needs to not be locked in a bathroom while her abusive boyfriend decides whether locked doors still apply to him. Harper. Derek's voice has lost its false gentleness. I'm counting to 10. Either you open this door, or I open it for you. Derek, please. Her voice cracks. I need to go to the hospital. My arm. Should have thought about that before you made me angry. He starts counting. 1, 2, 3. She texts the unknown number again, her fingers clumsy with fear and pain. Harper. He's counting. He's going to break down the door. Unknown number. 8 minutes. Can you barricade it? Harper looks around the small bathroom. There's nothing heavy enough to stop a grown man from forcing his way in. The towel rack, maybe, but it's barely secured to the wall. The toilet is bolted to the floor. She's trapped. Harper. No, nothing here. Unknown. Number. Then stay exactly where you are. Away from the door. When you hear someone at the door in approximately 7 minutes, it won't be him anymore. 6, 7, 8. Derek's voice grows louder with each number. Harper drags herself away from the door, her injured arm screaming in protest. She wedges herself between the toilet and the bathtub, making herself as small as possible. If Derek breaks through, maybe she can... What? Fight him off with one working arm? She's 5'4" and weighs 120 pounds, soaking wet. Derek is 6'2" and spends 5 days a week at the gym. She's going to die in this bathroom. The thought crystallizes with terrible clarity. Derek has been escalating for months. Shoving turned to slapping. Slapping turned to punching. Tonight, he'd crossed a new line. And men who break their girlfriend's arms don't stop there. 9. A pause, heavy and threatening. 10. The sound of Derek's fist hitting the bathroom door makes Harper flinch so hard she cries out. The door shudders in its frame but holds. Barely. Harper! His voice has gone cold. Empty. You're making this so much worse for yourself. Another impact. The door frame splinters slightly. One more hit and the lock will give. Harper's phone buzzes. Unknown number. 4 minutes. Hold on. Derek hits the door again. The wood cracks. Harper can see light from the hallway through the new gaps in the frame. She closes her eyes and prays to a God she stopped believing in when her father walked out 15 years ago. Prays that whoever this stranger is, they're really coming. Prays that 4 minutes is fast enough. Prays that Derek's next hit doesn't cave in the door and end whatever chance she has left. The apartment's front door explodes inward with a sound like thunder. Derek's attack on the bathroom door stops abruptly. Harper hears him shout, "What the? Who the hell are you?" A voice responds, deep, controlled, carrying an accent that Harper can't quite place. Italian, maybe. Sicilian. The person you should have thought twice about before hurting what's mine to protect. Get out of my apartment before I call the cops. Go ahead. I'm sure they'd be interested in discussing the woman with the broken arm locked in your bathroom. Through the cracked door, Harper hears sounds of struggle. Something crashes. Derek shouts again, but this time his voice carries fear instead of rage. There's a heavy thud, like a body hitting a wall. Then silence. Harper Mitchell. That accented voice again, closer now, speaking directly to the bathroom door. I'm Dante Romano. The door is damaged. I'm going to remove it from the frame. Cover your face in case the wood splinters. She does as instructed, turning away and shielding her head with her good arm. The sound of splintering wood fills the small bathroom, and then light floods in as the remains of the door are pulled away. Harper looks up into the face of the most dangerous-looking man she's ever seen. Dante Romano stands 6'3" with shoulders that strain against his black suit jacket. His face is all sharp angles, strong jaw, prominent cheekbones, a nose that looks like it's been broken at least once. His hair is dark, almost black, cut short in a style that's simultaneously professional and somehow military. But it's his eyes that steal Harper's breath. Dark brown, almost black in the bathroom's fluorescent lighting. Eyes that have seen violence. Eyes that promise protection and threat in equal measure. Those eyes take in her condition with a single sweeping glance. The blood on her lip. The way she cradles her right arm. The tears on her face. Something shifts in his expression. Not quite anger. Something colder, more controlled, more terrifying. We're leaving, he says quietly. His voice carries absolute authority. The kind of voice that doesn't expect to be questioned. Can you walk? Where's Derek? Unconscious in your living room. He'll wake up in about 10 minutes with a headache and a broken nose. You'll be long gone by then. Dante steps into the bathroom and extends his left hand to her. Trust me or don't, but in 90 seconds he's going to wake up. Your choice where you are when that happens. Harper looks at his offered hand. She knows nothing about this man except that He broke into her apartment, neutralized her boyfriend in under 30 seconds, and speaks with the kind of calm confidence that suggests he's done this before. She takes his hand. Dante helps her to her feet with surprising gentleness for someone who just committed assault and breaking and entering. His hand is warm, calloused. When she sways, dizzy with pain, his other hand comes to her waist to steady her. Your arm needs immediate medical attention. He guides her out of the bathroom, his body positioned between her and where Derek lies motionless on the floor. I have a private doctor who can set bones without asking questions that lead to police reports and court dates. Is that acceptable? Harper nods, not trusting her voice. Derek stirs on the floor, groaning. There's blood on his face from his obviously broken nose. Move. Dante's hand tightens on her waist, propelling her toward the destroyed front door. Now. They're in the hallway, before Harper's brain catches up with her body. My things, my purse, my phone charger, Already have your phone. Everything else can be replaced. Dante doesn't slow down. Can Derek follow you through credit cards or bank accounts? We share an account. He insisted when we moved in together. Then consider that money gone. New accounts, new cards, new everything. They reach the elevator. Dante presses the button with his free hand while keeping his body angled to watch the hallway. Where are your identification documents? Social security card, birth certificate, passport? In a safe in the bedroom closet. He knows the combination? Harper's silence is answer enough. Then assume he'll drain your accounts and potentially attempt identity theft. The elevator arrives. Dante guides her inside and immediately presses the button for the parking garage. My lawyer will handle freezing everything and establishing new accounts. Focus on breathing through the pain until we get you medical attention. The elevator descends. Harper leans against the wall, cradling her arm. The adrenaline that carried her through the last 20 minutes is fading, leaving her shaking and sick. Why are you helping me? Because you needed help, and I was able to provide it. Dante's answer is matter of fact. Why do you need more reason than that? People don't just... You broke into my apartment. You assaulted my boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend, he corrects. And I didn't assault anyone. I defended someone who couldn't defend themselves. There's a difference. The elevator doors open onto the parking garage. A black Mercedes SUV idles near the entrance, engine running. A man in a dark suit stands beside it, his eyes scanning the garage with the same watchful intensity Dante carries. This is Vincent, Dante says as they approach. Head of my security detail. Vincent, this is Harper Mitchell. She needs immediate medical attention for a broken right arm. Alert Dr. Marchetti that we're bringing her to the estate. Vincent's gaze flicks to Harper's cradled arm, then back to Dante. Understood, sir. Police? Not unless Ms. Mitchell wants to spend the next 6 months navigating the criminal justice system while her abuser walks free, on bail. Dante looks at Harper. Do you want to press charges? She thinks about the last time she tried to leave Derek, how he'd convinced the responding officers that they'd just had a fight, that Harper was overreacting, that he'd never hurt her, how charming he'd been, how reasonable, how the cops had looked at her with pity and annoyance before leaving them alone. No, she whispers, no police. Then we handle it privately. Dante helps her into the back seat of the Mercedes with careful hands that seem incongruous with the violence he'd displayed minutes earlier. He slides in beside her while Vincent takes the driver's seat. Vincent, the estate, quickly but carefully, no attention. The SUV pulls out of the garage and into Chicago's night traffic. Harper watches the apartment building disappear behind them, taking with it 2 years of her life, 2 years of making excuses, 2 years of believing she could fix him, 2 years of losing pieces of herself until she'd almost forgotten who she was before Derek Callahan convinced her that love was supposed to hurt. I'm going to be sick, she manages. Vincent immediately pulls over. Dante has her door open before the SUV fully stops, holding her hair back. while she vomits onto the curb. When she's done, he produces a pristine white handkerchief from his jacket pocket and offers it to her without comment. "Sorry," Harper gasps. "You've experienced significant trauma and pain. Your body is processing shock. There's nothing to apologize for." Dante waits until she's settled back in her seat before closing the door and returning to his position beside her. "Vincent, continue." They drive in silence for several minutes. Harper cradles her arm and tries to understand what's happening. She'd sent a text to the wrong number, and somehow that wrong number turned out to belong to a man who could break down doors and neutralize threats, and had a private doctor and an estate, and spoke like someone who'd spent his entire life issuing orders that people rushed to obey. "What do you do?" she asked quietly. "For work." Dante's expression doesn't change. "I manage various business interests throughout Chicago. Import-export, real estate, hospitality." That's very vague. It's also very accurate. He turns to look at her directly, those dark eyes assessing. "Are you asking if I'm someone you should be afraid of?" "Are you?" "That depends on whether you break arms or help people whose arms have been broken." The corner of his mouth lifts in something that might be a smile if it reached his eyes. "You're safe with me, Harper Mitchell. Whatever else you believe tonight, believe that." The SUV turns into a tree-lined driveway that seems to go on forever. Harper catches glimpses of manicured lawns, security gates, stone pillars flanking the entrance. When the house finally comes into view, she stops breathing. It's not a house. It's an estate. 3 stories of limestone and glass, lit from within like something out of a magazine spread. Fountains, sculpted gardens, what looks like a separate guest house visible behind the main structure. "You live here?" Her voice comes out small. "Family property," Dante says simply. "My grandfather built it in 1952. My father expanded the West Wing in 1989. I inherited it 7 years ago." The SUV stops at the main entrance. Vincent opens Harper's door and Dante is there immediately to help her out. Her legs feel unsteady. Everything feels unsteady. 6 hours ago, she'd been eating dinner with Derek, pretending everything was fine, pretending she didn't see the rage building behind his eyes every time she spoke, pretending that if she was just quiet enough, perfect enough, invisible enough, he wouldn't explode. Now she's standing in front of a mansion, her arm shattered, being guided inside by a stranger who saved her life. The front door opens before they reach it. A woman in her 50s, elegant in a navy dress, stands in the entrance. Her face is professionally neutral, but her eyes soften when she sees Harper's condition. "Dr. Marchetti is in the east sitting room," she says to Dante. "I've prepared the guest suite on the 2nd floor and laid out appropriate clothing." "Thank you, Sophia." Dante's hand remains at Harper's back, guiding her through an entrance hall that belongs in a museum. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, artwork that looks original and expensive. "This way." He leads her to a room filled with afternoon light despite the late hour, cleverly hidden lighting that mimics natural sunshine. A man in his 60s, wearing slacks and a button-down shirt under a medical coat, stands from where he's been arranging supplies on an antique side table. "Dante?" He nods in greeting, then turns his full attention to Harper. "I'm Dr. Carlo Marchetti. I understand you've sustained an arm injury. Let's get you seated and see what we're dealing with." For the next 40 minutes, Harper exists in a blur of medical attention. Dr. Marchetti is efficient, gentle, and asks no questions about how she broke her arm. He examines the injury, takes x-rays with a portable machine that Sophia wheels in, and finally administers local anesthesia before carefully manipulating the bone back into alignment. "Clean break of the radius," he explains as he works. "You'll need a cast for 6 to 8 weeks. The good news is that this should heal completely with no lasting damage." "The bad news?" Harper asks through gritted teeth. "The bad news is that this will hurt considerably for the next few days despite pain medication. And whoever did this used enough force to suggest deliberate intent to injure." "He was angry," Harper whispers. Anger doesn't break bones unless you want it to. Dr. Marchetti meets her eyes. His expression is kind but firm. You understand that, yes? This wasn't an accident. This was a choice he made. Fresh tears spill down Harper's cheeks. She nods, unable to speak. Dante, who has been standing silently near the window, moves closer. Will she be able to travel if necessary? Domestically, yes. Internationally would be more complicated due to insurance and paperwork, but possible. Dr. Marchetti finishes wrapping Harper's arm in a pristine white cast. She'll need to return in 48 hours for a checkup to ensure there's no additional swelling or complications. I'm prescribing pain medication and antibiotics as a precaution. I don't have insurance, Harper says numbly. Not anymore. Derek, he canceled my coverage 3 months ago during open enrollment, said it was too expensive. You don't need insurance. Dante's voice carries that same absolute authority from earlier. All medical expenses will be handled through my account. I can't let you. You can, and you will. He cuts her off with a look. We'll discuss logistics after you've rested. Right now, focus on recovery. Dr. Marchetti packs up his supplies while providing careful instructions about caring for the cast, warning signs of complications, and when to take which medications. When he's gone, Sophia returns to guide Harper upstairs. The guest suite is larger than Harper's entire apartment. King-size bed, private bathroom, a sitting area with plush chairs, and a television. Windows overlooking gardens that probably look spectacular in daylight. Clothing laid out on the bed, simple but clearly expensive. Exactly her size. How did you know what size to get? Harper asked Sophia. The older woman's expression remains professionally neutral. Mr. Romano has an eye for detail. Rest now. If you need anything, there's a phone on the nightstand. Press 0 for the main house line. When she's alone, Harper sits on the edge of the bed and stares at her casted arm. Less than 2 hours ago, she'd been locked in a bathroom, certain she was going to die. Now she's in a mansion, her arm treated by a private doctor, wearing a borrowed nightgown that probably cost more than her monthly rent. And all because she sent a text to the wrong number. Harper's phone, still clutched in her left hand, buzzes. A text from an unknown number. No, not unknown. She recognizes it now as the number she'd accidentally messaged earlier. Dante Romano, sleep. Tomorrow we'll discuss what happens next. You're safe here. She wants to argue. Wants to protest that she can't stay in some stranger's mansion. Can't accept this much help from someone she doesn't know. Can't just abandon her entire life because of one bad night. But her arm throbs with each heartbeat, proving that it wasn't just one bad night. It was 2 years of bad nights. 2 years of excuses. 2 years of dying by inches until the woman she used to be was barely recognizable. Harper sets her phone aside and crawls into bed. The sheets smell like lavender and luxury. The pillow molds perfectly to her head. And for the first time in 2 years, she falls asleep without fear. Harper wakes to sunlight streaming through windows she doesn't recognize. For 3 disorienting seconds, she forgets where she is. Then her right arm throbs, sending sharp reminders through her nervous system, and memory crashes back in waves. Derek. The bathroom. The wrong number. Dante Romano breaking down doors like something out of an action movie. She sits up carefully, cradling her casted arm. The room looks different in daylight, less intimidating, more beautiful. The furniture is a mix of antique and modern, somehow working together to create a space that feels both elegant and comfortable. Through the windows, she can see the gardens Sophia mentioned. Roses, sculpted hedges, a fountain with what looks like a bronze statue at its center. This isn't real. None of this can be real. A gentle knock at the door interrupts her spiraling thoughts. Miss Mitchell? Sophia's voice. May I come in? Yes. The older woman enters carrying a tray laden with breakfast. Coffee, fresh fruit, eggs Benedict that smell incredible, orange juice, and what looks like homemade pastries. She sets it on the small table near the window with practiced efficiency. Mr. Romano requests your presence for breakfast on the terrace in 1 hour, if you're feeling well enough, Sophia says. I've laid out appropriate clothing. Do you need assistance dressing? I can manage. Harper's voice sounds strange to her own ears, stronger than she expected. The bathroom is stocked with all necessary toiletries. If you need anything else, please don't hesitate to ask. Sophia heads toward the door, then pauses. For what it's worth, Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Romano doesn't bring people to the estate. You must have made quite an impression. She leaves before Harper can ask what that means. Harper eats mechanically, her mind racing. She needs to call Natalie, needs to figure out what to do about her job. She was supposed to work this morning at the coffee shop, needs to access her bank account before Derek drains it completely, needs to find an apartment, Her phone buzzes. A text from Natalie. Natalie. OMG, where are you? Derek just showed up at the shop looking for you. Said you had a fight and he's worried. He has a black eye and his nose looks broken. Harper, what happened? Harper's hands shake as she types back. Harper. Long story, I'm safe. Can you cover my shift? I'll explain everything soon. Natalie. Already covered. But H, seriously, are you okay? Should I call someone? Harper. I'm okay. With a friend. I'll call you later. She's not okay. She's very far from okay. But Natalie doesn't need to know that yet. Harper showers one-handed, which proves more challenging than expected. The cast stays dry thanks to a plastic covering Sophia thoughtfully included with the toiletries. The hot water feels incredible against her bruised skin. She discovers purpling marks on her ribs that she doesn't remember getting. Fingerprint bruises on her left wrist, from where Derek grabbed her. Evidence of violence written across her body in shades of purple and yellow and green. The clothing laid out on the bed fits perfectly. Dark jeans, a soft gray sweater that accommodates her cast. Comfortable flats. All brand new. Tags still attached. All exactly her size and style. Harper remembers Sophia's comment about Dante Romano having an eye for detail and wonders what else he notices. She finds her way downstairs by following the sound of voices. The house is even more impressive in daylight. High ceilings, artwork that probably belongs in museums, furniture that speaks of old money and careful preservation. But it doesn't feel cold or sterile. There are fresh flowers in every room, family photographs on mantels, books stacked on side tables like someone actually reads them. The voices lead her to a terrace overlooking those spectacular gardens. Dante sits at an iron table, reading something on a tablet while drinking coffee. He's dressed more casually than last night, dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that suggest he spends significant time at a gym. No jacket, no tie, somehow even more intimidating without the formal business attire. He looks up when her shadow falls across the table. Those dark eyes conduct their usual assessment, taking in everything about her in a single glance. You slept. Some. Harper hovers near the table's edge, unsure if she should sit without invitation. Thank you for everything. The room, the doctor, the clothes, all of it. Sit. It's a command phrased as a suggestion. Coffee? She sits, accepts the coffee he pours with steady hands, tries not to notice how his presence fills the terrace the same way it filled her bathroom last night. All controlled power and careful attention and something darker lurking beneath the surface. We need to discuss logistics, Dante says after giving her a moment to drink. Your ex-boyfriend will be looking for you. Vincent confirmed he filed a police report this morning claiming you attacked him and fled. He's playing victim. Of course he is. Harper's laugh sounds bitter even to her own ears. Derek's very good at playing victim. It's how he operates. I have lawyers handling the situation. By this afternoon, there will be counter-documentation establishing a pattern of abuse, witness statements from your neighbors about previous incidents, and medical records confirming your injuries. Dante sets down his tablet. However, police reports can become court cases. Are you prepared for that possibility? You said no police. I said not unless you wanted to navigate the criminal justice system. That was before he filed false charges. Something dangerous flickers in those dark eyes. I don't allow people under my protection to be falsely accused of crimes they didn't commit. Under your protection? Harper repeats the phrase slowly. What does that mean exactly? It means Derek Callahan made an enemy of me when he hurt you. It means he'll find his bank accounts frozen, pending investigation into financial abuse, his lease terminated for violating building policies, his employer receiving anonymous tips about his workplace harassment incidents, and his reputation systematically dismantled until leaving Chicago becomes his only option. Harper stares at him. You can do all that? I can do significantly more than that. Dante's voice remains calm, conversational, as if he's discussing weather rather than comprehensive character assassination. But I'm trying to be measured, subtle, give him an exit option before things escalate to levels that can't be walked back from. Are you still with me? This is just the beginning of Harper and Dante's story. Drop an emoji if you're loving this, and make sure you're subscribed. Things are about to get even more intense. Who are you? Harper asked quietly. Really? Dante takes a long sip of his coffee. When he speaks, his voice carries the same careful precision she's come to recognize as his default. My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations. My grandfather emigrated from Sicily in 1947 with nothing but the clothes on his back and a talent for business negotiations. He built an empire through hard work and strategic thinking. My father expanded that empire, and I inherited both the empire and the responsibilities that come with it. That's not an answer. Yes, it is. He meets her eyes directly. You're asking if I'm what you think I am. The answer is yes. I manage business interests that exist in legal gray areas. I have connections throughout the city in both legitimate and illegitimate circles. People fear me because I've earned that fear through consistent follow-through on promises both good and bad. And I have the resources and influence to make Derek Callahan disappear from your life completely. Harper's coffee cup rattles slightly when she sets it down. Are you going to kill him? Do you want me to? What? No, Jesus, I don't want... She stops, breathes, tries to process the casual way he asked that question. I want him gone. I want to be safe. I don't want him dead. Then he won't be. Simple, matter of fact. I have other methods of dealing with problems that don't end impermanently. Why are you helping me? I told you last night. No. Harper cuts him off. That might have made sense when it was just breaking down a door and taking me to a doctor. But this? Making him leave Chicago? Freezing his accounts? Having lawyers handle police reports? This is so far beyond helping a stranger that there has to be another reason. Dante studies her for a long moment. The morning sun catches the scar on his chin, making it more pronounced. When I was 12 years old, my mother called her sister in tears. My father had... They'd argued about something I still don't know, and his way of ending the argument was to break her jaw. Harper's breath catches. My aunt called my grandfather. Dante continues, his voice carefully empty of emotion. And my grandfather handled the situation. My father spent 6 weeks in the hospital recovering from his accident. When he came home, he never raised his hand to my mother again. Never spoke to her in anything but respectful tones. Treated her like the queen she deserved to be treated as. That's justice, Dante finishes. That's what that was. True justice. The kind that doesn't come from courts or judges or systems designed to fail people like my mother. Like you. He leans forward slightly. I help people like you because I understand that sometimes the system doesn't work. Sometimes the only justice available is the justice you create yourself. They sit in silence for several minutes. Birds sing in the gardens. Somewhere nearby, a fountain burbles. Normal sounds in a morning that feels anything but normal. What happens now? Harper finally asks. Now you recover. Now Derek learns that touching you was the worst mistake of his life. Now you decide what you want your life to look like when you're not afraid anymore. Dante stands, extending his hand to her. Walk with me. I'll show you the grounds. Harper takes his hand. She's not sure why. Maybe because he saved her. Maybe because he's offering justice in a world that has offered her nothing but pain. Maybe because there's something about the way he looks at her that makes her feel seen for the first time in years. They walk through gardens that look like something from a fairy tale. Rose bushes climbing trellises, stone pathways winding between flower beds. The fountain up close reveals itself to be a bronze statue of a woman holding a sword, water cascading from the raised blade. My grandmother, Dante says, noticing Harper's interest. She died before I was born, but my grandfather had this commissioned in her honor. Said she was the fiercest woman he'd ever known. What was her name? Lucia Romano. She ran the family businesses after my grandfather had his first heart attack. Ran them better than he did, according to everyone who knew her. Pride colors his voice. She's the one who taught me that power without purpose is just violence. That true strength is knowing when to use force and when to use patience. They walk further, reaching a small gazebo that overlooks what appears to be a private lake. Harper sits on the bench inside, suddenly exhausted, despite having done nothing but walk. I need to figure out what to do, she says quietly. About work, about my apartment, about... Your apartment lease was in both names? Derek's name, he insisted. Then you have no legal claim to it. Vincent is already arranging for your personal belongings to be collected and brought here. Dante sits beside her, careful to leave appropriate space between them. As for work, you mentioned a coffee shop. What's the name? Brewster's Corner on West Madison, but I can't. My arm is in a cast. They won't want me. They'll be informed you're taking medical leave for recovery from an assault. If they terminate your employment, my lawyers will handle the wrongful termination suit. His tone suggests this is already decided. You need time to heal, physically and otherwise. I can't stay here, Harper protests. It's too much. I don't even know you. You know I broke down a door to save you. You know I have the resources to help you rebuild your life. You know Derek is terrified of me. Dante turns to face her directly. What else do you need to know? Why you really care? The words come out before Harper can stop them. Because people don't do this, not for strangers, not without expecting something in return. I expect nothing in return. His voice carries absolute certainty. But if it helps you accept my help, think of this as atonement for all the times my grandfather's men hurt people who didn't deserve it. For all the violence my family has inflicted over 4 generations of existing in the shadows. For my mother's broken jaw and every woman who didn't have someone to call when they needed help. Harper searches his face for signs of deception, finds only brutal honesty. How long can I stay? As long as you need. Dante stands, extending his hand again. But right now, Dr. Marchetti wants to see you for your follow-up appointment. And after that, Vincent needs your statement about Derek for the lawyers. The next few hours pass in a blur of medical examinations, legal discussions, and paperwork. Dr. Marchetti pronounces her cast healing appropriately and adjusts her pain medication. Vincent, who proves to be not just security, but some kind of operations manager, records her detailed account of her relationship with Derek with the professionalism of someone who's done this before. We have statements from 3 neighbors confirming they heard fighting in your apartment on multiple occasions, Vincent explains after she's finished. One neighbor specifically recalls hearing you scream for help 2 months ago. The building's security footage shows Derek entering the apartment angry on 17 separate occasions over the past 6 months. Your medical records from the walk-in clinic on State Street document treatment for suspicious injuries 3 times in the past year. You found all that in one morning? Harper asks incredulously. Mr. Romano's instructions were clear. Vincent's expression remains professionally neutral. Protect Ms. Mitchell's interests and establish documentation that will make any counterclaims from Mr. Callahan legally untenable. By evening, Harper feels wrung out, exhausted in ways that have nothing to do with physical pain. She retreats to her borrowed room and finds new clothing laid out, more casual pieces, comfortable loungewear, everything still in her exact size. Her phone buzzes, a text from Derek. Derek, please come home. I'm sorry, I'll change. I promise. We can work this out. She stares at the message for a long moment. 6 months ago, she would have believed him, would have convinced herself that this time really would be different. But 6 months ago, her arm wasn't in a cast. Harper deletes the message without responding. Another text arrives immediately after, this one from a different number she doesn't recognize. Unknown. This is Vincent. If Derek contacts you again, forward all messages directly to me. Do not respond to him under any circumstances. It's being monitored. She screenshots Derek's apology and sends it to Vincent, then blocks Derek's number completely. The next 3 days settle into an unexpected routine. Harper wakes in her borrowed room overlooking gardens that become more beautiful with each sunrise. Sophia brings breakfast and updates on Derek's increasingly desperate attempts to contact her through mutual friends, through social media, through showing up at Brewster's Corner asking for her. He was escorted from the premises by security. Sophia reports over morning coffee on the terrace. The manager informed him that if he returned, the police would be called. Dante appears for breakfast each morning, discussing everything except the situation with Derek. He asks about her interests, her goals before Derek, what she wanted to study in college before financial limitations forced her into service work. He's surprisingly easy to talk to when the topic isn't violence or justice or the empire he inherited. I wanted to be an art historian, Harper admits on the third morning. Study Renaissance paintings, work in museums, spend my life surrounded by beautiful things created by talented people. Why didn't you? Student loans seemed overwhelming. My mother was already struggling. Art history felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. She cradles her coffee cup. So I dropped out after 2 years and started working full-time. Told myself I'd go back when I saved enough money. But you never did. Life got in the way. Derek got in the way. Harper sets down her cup. He was very clear that college was a waste of time and money, that I should focus on practical skills instead of pointless degrees that wouldn't lead to real jobs. Dante's expression darkens. Men who are intimidated by educated women often disguise their insecurity as practical advice. Is that what he was? Intimidated? You're intelligent, articulate, and capable of independent thought. Of course he was intimidated. Dante stands, extending his hand in what's becoming their morning ritual. Walk with me. They stroll through the grounds, Harper growing more comfortable with the silence between them. Dante doesn't feel the need to fill every moment with conversation, which she finds refreshing after 2 years of Derek demanding constant attention and validation. Vincent found an apartment, Dante says as they reach the gazebo. 2-bedroom, West Loop, secured building with 24-hour doorman. First and last month's rent already paid. Available for move-in next week. Harper stops walking. I can't afford. Consider it. Part of your settlement from Derek. Dante's voice carries that tone that suggests arguing is pointless. His accounts are being frozen, but before that happens, certain funds can be redirected to cover damages caused by his abuse. That's theft. That's justice. He meets her eyes. He broke your arm, Harper, made you afraid in your own home, controlled your finances and isolated you from support systems. A security deposit and 3 months' rent is the least he owes you. She wants to argue, wants to insist she can handle this herself, but the truth is she can't. Derek cleaned out their joint account the morning after she left. Vincent confirmed that yesterday. She has $273 in her personal savings and no way to access the tips she'd been storing in their apartment. Okay, Harper whispers. Okay, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Something shifts in Dante's expression. There's one more thing we need to discuss. They sit in the gazebo, and Harper braces herself for whatever comes next. Derek isn't leaving quietly, Dante says. He's hired an attorney, claims you embezzled money from him before fleeing, that I kidnapped you, that this whole situation is some kind of elaborate blackmail scheme. That's insane. That's desperation. Dante leans back, his body language deceptively relaxed. He's flailing, trying to create enough noise that someone investigates and discovers complications in my business dealings. Meaning your illegal business dealings. Meaning exactly that. He doesn't deny it, doesn't deflect, just states it as fact. If this goes to court, there will be scrutiny, investigations, attention on aspects of my life that function better in shadows. So what do? We give him a choice. Dante's voice drops, taking on an edge that makes Harper's skin prickle with instinctive awareness of danger. He can take the settlement my lawyers are offering, enough money to relocate out of state and start over elsewhere, and sign documents agreeing never to contact you again. Or he can refuse and face consequences that extend far beyond legal complications. What kind of consequences? Dante's silence is answer enough. You said you wouldn't kill him, Harper says quietly. I said I wouldn't kill him if you didn't want me to. You still don't want that? She should be horrified. Should be demanding he takes her to the nearest police station. Should be running from this man who speaks about violence with the same casual tone most people use to discuss dinner plans. But Derek's voice echoes in her memory. You made me do this. You make me so angry. Why do you always make me hurt you? I don't want him dead, Harper says carefully. But I want him gone. Permanently gone. Not just from Chicago. From my life completely. I want to know that I'll never accidentally run into him at a grocery store, or have him show up at my job, or wake up to him standing over my bed. Then that's what will happen. Dante stands, extending his hand once more. Trust me to handle it. No more questions. No more doubts. Just trust that when I say he'll be gone, I mean it. Harper takes his hand. She's not sure when that became her default response to him. Maybe when he broke down a bathroom door. Maybe when he paid for a private doctor without asking questions. Maybe when he looked at her like she was worth saving instead of a burden to be managed. That evening, Harper joins Dante for dinner in the formal dining room. It's the first time they've eaten together inside rather than on the terrace, and the change in setting feels significant somehow. The table could easily seat 20, but place settings are arranged at one end, positioned close enough for conversation without feeling intimate. Sophia serves food that Harper suspects would cost $200 at a restaurant. Braised short ribs, roasted vegetables that probably came from the estate's own gardens, fresh bread that melts on her tongue, wine that tastes like liquid sunshine. Vincent informed me that Derek accepted the settlement, Dante says halfway through the meal. He'll be relocating to Phoenix within 2 weeks. The documents include a legally binding agreement never to contact you through any means, and violation of that agreement triggers financial penalties substantial enough to ensure compliance. He just agreed, just like that. Vincent can be very persuasive when necessary. Dante takes a sip of wine. Derek also understands that refusal would have consequences significantly worse than relocating to Arizona. Harper sets down her fork. Did Vincent threaten him? Vincent presented options with complete transparency about potential outcomes. Derek made an informed choice. Dante's expression reveals nothing. You're safe now, Harper. Completely safe. Derek Callahan is no longer a threat to you or your future. She should feel relieved, victorious, free. Instead, she feels oddly hollow. What happens now? Harper asks. I move into this apartment you found. I go back to work. I rebuild my life and pretend the past 3 days didn't happen. Why would you pretend they didn't happen? Because I don't fit in your world, Dante. She gestures around the dining room with its crystal chandelier and original artwork in china that probably costs more than her car. I'm a college dropout who makes lattes for a living. You're whatever you are. Criminal mastermind, mafia boss, whatever the correct terminology is. And you think those things are mutually exclusive? Dante's tone carries amusement. You think I judge people based on their employment status? I think you exist in a world where people have private doctors and security details and can make problems disappear with a phone call? Harper's voice rises slightly. I think you live in a completely different reality than mine. And eventually you're going to get bored of playing white knight to a damsel in distress. You're not a damsel in distress. Dante sets down his wine glass with deliberate care. You're a woman who survived 2 years in an abusive relationship and still had the strength to text for help when it mattered. You're intelligent enough to recognize danger and brave enough to accept help from a stranger. You're broken, Harper interrupts. I'm broken, Dante. Derek didn't just break my arm. He broke something inside me, and I don't know how to fix it. The silence that follows feels heavy, significant. Dante stands from his place at the table and moves around to where Harper sits. He kneels beside her chair, bringing their eyes level, and takes her good hand in both of his. Broken things can be repaired, he says quietly. Sometimes they're even stronger in the places where they broke. My mother used to say that Japanese potters repair broken pottery with gold, making the cracks part of the object's history rather than something to hide. Maybe you're not broken. Maybe you're just waiting for someone to see that the cracks are part of what makes you beautiful. Harper's eyes fill with tears. I don't feel beautiful. I feel used up and exhausted and terrified that I'll never be normal again. Good. Dante's thumbs trace patterns over her knuckles. Normal was working yourself to death at a coffee shop, while a man slowly destroyed your sense of self. Normal was accepting breadcrumbs of affection between episodes of violence. Normal was believing you deserved to be hurt. His eyes, usually so controlled, carry an intensity that steals her breath. Be extraordinary instead. Be someone who survived and rebuilt herself stronger. Be someone who accepted help when she needed it and isn't ashamed of needing it. I don't know how to be that person. Then let me show you. Dante stands, pulling her gently to her feet. Stay, not because you owe me, not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you deserve time to heal in a place where you feel safe. And when I'm healed, Harper asks, what then? Then you decide what you want your life to look like, and I help you build it. Simple, certain, absolute. Harper looks at this man who broke into her apartment to save her, who speaks about violence with the same casual ease most people discuss weather, who kneels beside her chair and talks about Japanese pottery like it's the most natural thing in the world. Okay, she whispers. I'll stay. I'm getting emotional over here. If you're feeling the story, drop an emoji and let me know in the comments. We're only halfway through, and trust me, you need to see how this ends. The next week transforms Harper's understanding of what safety feels like. She moves through the estate with increasing confidence, discovering rooms she hadn't seen before. A library that rivals any bookstore, complete with rolling ladders and reading nooks tucked between shelves. An art studio filled with supplies and natural light. A home theater, a conservatory, with glass walls and exotic plants. My mother painted, Dante explains when he finds Harper standing in the studio doorway on her 4th afternoon at the estate. Not well, but with passion. She said creating beauty helped her process the ugly parts of life. These are hers? Harper gestures to canvases stacked against walls. Technically, yes, but she always said art doesn't belong to the artist once it's finished. It belongs to whoever needs it most. Dante moves past her into the studio. If you want to paint, the supplies are yours to use. I don't paint. Maybe you should start. He pulls out a canvas, setting it on the empty easel. Dr. Marchetti says working with your hands helps process trauma. Dr. Marchetti is a surgeon, not a therapist. Dr. Marchetti is also a man who has treated enough trauma victims to recognize healing patterns. Dante opens drawers, revealing tubes of paint in every conceivable color. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to be honest. Over the following days, Harper discovers he's right. She paints terribly, abstract messes of color that look like nothing and everything simultaneously. But the act of creating something, of taking rage and fear and pain and transforming them into visible marks on canvas, helps in ways she doesn't fully understand. Dante often joins her, sitting in comfortable silence while she works. Sometimes he reads. Sometimes he works on his tablet. Sometimes he just watches her with an expression she can't quite decipher. "You're different than I expected," Harper says one afternoon, mixing colors that probably shouldn't go together but somehow do. "Different how?" "Less scary, more human." She glances at him. "That sounds terrible, doesn't it?" "It sounds honest." Dante sets down his book. "I work very hard to be scary in professional contexts. Fear is a useful tool when negotiating with people who respect only power, but fear is exhausting to maintain constantly." "So this is the real you?" Harper gestures at him, lounging in an armchair with a novel. "The guy who reads historical fiction and lets strange women paint badly in his mother's studio? This is one version of me." His smile carries shadows. "The version that exists in spaces where I don't have to be anything except present. I like this version." "I'm glad." Something shifts between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of connection that goes beyond savior and saved. Harper looks at Dante Romano, this dangerous man who kneels beside dining room chairs and talks about pottery repairs and gives her space to be broken, and realizes she's in serious trouble. Because she's starting to care about him, not as her rescuer, not as some white knight fantasy, but as the complicated, contradictory man who contains multitudes. That evening, Vincent requests Harper's presence in what he calls the security office. It proves to be a room filled with monitors showing every angle of the estate's grounds, staffed by professionals who barely glance up when she enters. "Ms. Mitchell," Vincent gestures to a specific monitor. "I wanted you to see this." On screen, Derek stands outside the estate's main gates. He's yelling something Harper can't hear through the monitor's silence. His face carries that familiar, rage-flushed expression she knows too well. "How did he find this place?" Harper's voice comes out small. "He hired a private investigator." Vincent's tone suggests this was expected. The investigator was smart enough to refuse further involvement once he realized whose property this is. On screen, 2 security guards approach Derek. There's a brief conversation. Derek pulls out his phone, clearly recording. The guards remain calm, hands visible, body language non-threatening. After a few minutes, Derek storms back to his car and drives away. "He's been parked outside for 3 hours, Vincent explains, making videos for his attorney, claiming you're being held against your will." "Am I?" Harper asks quietly. Vincent turns to look at her directly. "Ms. Mitchell, you're free to leave at any time. Walk through those gates right now if you want. Mr. Romano's protection doesn't require your presence in this building. It requires only that you want to be protected." But Derek doesn't know that. Derek knows exactly what he needs to know, that approaching you will have consequences he's not prepared to face. Vincent switches monitor views, showing Derek's car is still parked a block away. He's testing boundaries, seeing if the threats were real. "And are they?" Harper asks. "The threats?" "Extremely real." Vincent's expression remains professionally neutral. Mr. Romano doesn't make promises he can't keep. Harper watches Derek on the monitor, recognizing the rage pacing, the aggressive body language, the entitlement written across every movement. She'd lived with that rage for 2 years, had internalized it, had believed she deserved it. "I want to talk to him," she says suddenly. "That's not advisable." "I don't care." Harper straightens her shoulders. I want him to hear me say that I'm here because I choose to be, that no one is holding me captive, that he lost me the moment he broke my arm. Vincent studies her for a long moment, then nods. I'll arrange it. But it happens on Mr. Romano's terms. Monitored location, security present, no physical contact, and you tell him this ends now, or we escalate. Harper agrees to Vincent's conditions. 30 minutes later, she stands in the estate's formal entrance hall while Derek is escorted through the main gates by security. Dante stands beside her, silent but present. Vincent positions himself near the door. Derek enters looking like someone who hasn't slept in days. His broken nose has healed poorly, leaving his face slightly asymmetrical. He's lost weight. His usual polished appearance has crumbled into wrinkled clothing and hollow eyes. Harper, his voice cracks. Thank God. I've been so worried. These people, they won't let me talk to you. They threatened me. Stop. Harper's voice sounds stronger than she feels. Just stop, Derek. Baby, we can fix this. I know I made mistakes, but we can... You broke my arm. The words come out flat, factual. You twisted it behind my back and broke the bone because I asked why you were late for dinner. That's not a mistake. That's assault. It was an accident. I didn't mean... You meant it. Harper steps forward, ignoring Dante's subtle movement to stay between her and potential danger. You meant every shove, every slap, every cruel word. You meant to control me, to make me small, to convince me I deserved to be hurt. And I'm done. You're brainwashed. Derek's eyes flick to Dante with pure hatred. He's got you convinced. Whatever lies he's told you about me. The only lies I believed were yours. Harper's voice rises. That you loved me, that you'd change, that I was the problem. I believed all of it because I wanted so badly for it to be true. Harper, please. Derek's voice cracks again, this time carrying genuine desperation. I need you. I can't. Everything is falling apart. They froze my accounts. My job fired me. My lease is terminated. You did this to me. No. The word comes out sharp as a blade. You did this to yourself when you decided breaking my arm was an acceptable response to being questioned. I'm sorry. Tears stream down Derek's face. Real tears, though. Whether from genuine remorse or fear of consequences, Harper can't tell. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Therapy, anger management, whatever you want. Just come home. Please come home. Harper looks at this man she once loved. This man she once believed she'd spend her life with. This man who systematically destroyed her sense of self until she'd become a ghost in her own life. Goodbye, Derek. She turns away from him, toward Dante's steady presence. I hope Phoenix gives you the fresh start you clearly need, but that fresh start doesn't include me. Harper! Derek lunges forward. Dante moves faster, positioning himself between them with a liquid grace. Vincent appears at Derek's side, hand firm on his shoulder. You need to leave, Dante says quietly. His voice carries no anger, no threat, just absolute certainty. The settlement money is already transferred. Your flight leaves tomorrow at 9 a.m. I suggest you be on it. You can't make me. I can. Dante's voice drops even quieter, more dangerous. I can make you leave Chicago. I can make you stay silent. I can make your life in Phoenix comfortable or miserable. Your choice. But you cannot contact Harper again. Not through messages. Not through mutual friends. Not through social media or phone calls or showing up at places you think she might be. You had her for 2 years and you broke her. You don't get her again. Derek opens his mouth, closes it, looks past Dante to where Harper stands, her casted arm cradled against her chest, her eyes dry, her expression resolute. You'll regret this, he says finally, when you realize what he really is, when you see the monster beneath the expensive suits. You'll remember that I loved you. You never loved me, Harper says softly. You love the idea of someone you could control. That's not the same thing. Vincent escorts Derek out. Harper watches through the entrance hall's tall windows as he's guided to his car, as he sits in the driver's seat for several minutes, as he finally starts the engine and drives away. When the sound of his car fades completely, Harper releases a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Are you okay?" Dante asks. "No." Harper turns to face him. "But I will be. Eventually. Maybe." "Yes, you will." He extends his hand. That gesture that's become their pattern. "Walk with me. You need air." They walk through the gardens in the growing dark. Security lights illuminate pathways, making everything look magical and unreal. Harper realizes she's crying without quite understanding why. Relief, maybe? Or grief for the time she lost? Or fear about what comes next? Dante doesn't comment on her tears, just walks beside her, his presence steady and grounding, until she stops in the gazebo overlooking the private lake. "Thank you," Harper says, "for everything. For breaking down that door, for the doctors and the lawyers and the apartment, and standing between me and him and—" "Stop thanking me." Dante's voice carries something she can't quite identify. "You thanking me suggests I did something extraordinary. I did what anyone should do when they encounter someone in danger. But you're not just anyone." "No." He moves closer, close enough that Harper can smell cedar and something darker. "I'm not." "Then who are you?" Harper asks. "Really?" "I'm someone who understood immediately when you texted that you needed help. Someone who recognized the desperation in those words, because I've heard them before in different contexts. Someone who breaks down doors when necessary and kneels beside dining room chairs when appropriate." He pauses. "Someone who is dangerously close to caring about you, far more than is wise or safe for either of us." Harper's breath catches. "That's not... You barely know me. I know you survived 2 years with a man who tried to kill everything strong inside you. I know you paint your trauma in abstract colors and hide the canvases before anyone can see them. I know you check your phone every morning to make sure Derek hasn't somehow found another way to contact you. I know you're terrified of taking up space because you've been trained to believe you don't deserve any." His voice drops. "I know enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to know that whatever happens next, I want to be part of your story. Not as your savior. Not as some protector you tolerate because you have no other options. As someone who sees the woman you're becoming and wants to witness that transformation." Harper stares at him. This dangerous man. This criminal with kind eyes and gentle hands. This person who exists in worlds she doesn't understand, but speaks to parts of her she thought Derek had destroyed. "I don't know how to do this," she whispers. "How to be around someone who doesn't hurt me, who doesn't make me feel small. How to trust that you won't—" "Then don't trust me yet." Dante's hand comes to her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with exquisite care. "Trust that I'll earn it. Trust that I'll give you space to heal without pressure to be anything except honest. Trust that when you're ready to decide what happens next, I'll respect whatever you choose. And if I choose to walk away, to take that apartment and rebuild my life without you in it, then I'll wish you well and make sure Derek never finds you. Simple, honest. But I hope you don't. I hope you stay long enough to discover that not all powerful men are dangerous to the people they care about." Harper rises on her tiptoes, difficult with only one working arm, and presses a kiss to Dante's jaw. Just above his scar, a gesture of gratitude and possibility, and something she's not ready to name yet. "I'll stay," she says, "for now, until I figure out who I am when I'm not afraid. That's all I'm asking." They stand in the gazebo while stars emerge overhead. Two broken people finding unexpected safety in proximity. 3 weeks pass like a fever dream. Harper moves into the West Loop apartment Dante arranged, discovering it's everything she dreamed about when she fantasized about escape. High ceilings, exposed brick, natural light pouring through oversized windows. The building has actual security, the kind Derek could never bypass even if he tried. Not that he's trying. Vincent reports that Derek Callahan settled in Phoenix, took a job with a marketing firm, and hasn't attempted contact since their confrontation at the estate. He's staying quiet, Vincent tells Harper during one of his weekly check-ins. Smart man. Or terrified man, Harper responds. With Mr. Romano, there's often not much difference. Harper returns to work at Brewster's Corner. Initially terrified, her coworkers will ask questions about her cast, about her 3-week absence, about the rumors that inevitably spread in their close-knit staff. But her manager pulls her aside on her first day back and says only, medical leave is private. Anyone who makes you uncomfortable will answer to me. Later, Natalie admits Dante's lawyers had a private conversation with management about harassment policies and legal liabilities. Harper doesn't know whether to be grateful or uncomfortable with the level of protection Dante extends. She sees him 3 times a week. Tuesday and Thursday, coffee at a place near her apartment. Sunday brunch at the estate. Nothing romantic. Nothing that crosses boundaries. Just careful friendship between 2 people, figuring out what they mean to each other. On the 4th Sunday, Dr. Marchetti removes her cast. The bone healed beautifully, he announces, examining the x-rays on his portable screen. Full range of motion should return with physical therapy. Harper stares at her arm. The skin is pale from weeks under plaster, slightly dry but otherwise unmarked. No visible evidence of what Derek did to her. The bone broke and healed and left no lasting scar. It's strange, she tells Dante over brunch on the terrace, looking at it and knowing it was broken but seeing no proof. The important scars are the ones we can't see, Dante responds. He's dressed casually, jeans and a black Henley, and looks more relaxed than she's ever seen him. The ones that remind us we survived. They've developed a comfortable rhythm, Harper realizes, a pattern of meals and conversation and silence that feels significant without being overwhelming. She tells him about rude customers and coworker drama and her attempts to start painting again in her apartment. He tells her about business meetings and family obligations and the book he's reading about Renaissance art. You remembered, Harper says, surprised. You said you wanted to be an art historian. Dante's expression suggests he remembers everything she tells him. I thought understanding what you love might help me understand you better. And does it? I'm beginning to. On a Wednesday, 6 weeks after her cast comes off, Harper decides to visit her mother. They haven't spoken since Harper left Derek, another relationship destroyed by her ex's systematic isolation. But grief counseling, paid for by Dante, arranged by Vincent, non-negotiable, has taught her that healing requires confronting the damage Derek left behind. Her mother lives in a small house in Naperville, 45 minutes outside Chicago. Harper takes the train because she still doesn't trust herself to drive safely with her newly healed arm. The journey gives her too much time to rehearse conversations, to imagine worst-case scenarios, to consider turning back. But she doesn't turn back. Her mother answers the door looking older than Harper remembers. Gray has taken over most of her dark hair. Lines around her eyes have deepened. She's wearing a cardigan despite the warm day, and her hands shake slightly when she raises them to her mouth. Harper, her voice breaks. Oh, baby. They cry on the doorstep for 5 minutes, apologies and explanations tangling together until neither knows who's saying what. Inside, over tea that tastes like childhood, Harper tells her mother an edited version of what happened. The abuse, the broken arm, the wrong number that saved her life, the man who broke down doors. You should have called me, her mother says. I would have. Derek made sure I believed no one would help me. Harper cradles her teacup. That I deserved what was happening, that reporting him would just make everything worse. I knew something was wrong. Her mother's voice carries guilt. When you stopped calling, when you canceled visits, when you looked so thin and tired the last time I saw you, I knew, but I didn't push hard enough. It's not your fault. Isn't it? I let him isolate you. I didn't... Mom. Harper reaches across the table, taking her mother's hand. Derek's choices are Derek's responsibility. Not yours. Not mine. His. They talk for hours about healing and fear and the slow process of rebuilding trust. Harper's mother asks careful questions about Dante, and Harper realizes she doesn't quite know how to explain him. Are you together? Her mother asks. I don't know what we are, Harper admits. He's been incredibly patient, never pushing, never demanding, just present. But I'm terrified. Of him? Of me. Harper sets down her empty teacup. Of discovering I'm attracted to the same pattern. Powerful men. Control. The protection that so easily becomes possession. Does he make you feel possessed? Harper considers this. Thinks about Tuesday coffees where Dante asks her opinion on Italian immigration policies and actually listens to her answers. Thursday dinners where they argue about whether Hamilton deserves its cultural prominence. Sunday brunches where they sit in comfortable silence, reading separate books in proximity. No, she says finally. He makes me feel seen, which is somehow more terrifying. Her mother smiles, sad and knowing. Your father used to say that being truly seen by someone is the most intimate act possible, that it requires more vulnerability than physical connection. He said that before he left. He said that after he left, actually, in one of those rare moments when he was honest about his own limitations. Her mother's expression softens. Not everyone who leaves does so because they don't care, Harper. Sometimes people leave because they care enough to recognize they're not capable of being what we need them to be. Harper thinks about this on the train ride back to Chicago. About staying and leaving and the courage both require. About powerful men and the difference between protection and possession. About Dante Romano kneeling beside dining room chairs and extending his hand every morning, offering partnership instead of control. She texts him without overthinking it. Harper, I visited my mother today. It was good. Hard, but good. Are you free tonight? Dante, always for you. The estate or somewhere neutral? Harper, neutral. Coffee? Dante, our usual place. 7 p.m. They meet at the coffee shop where they've shared 36 careful conversations. Dante arrives exactly on time, carrying what looks like a portfolio under his arm. He orders black coffee and whatever Harper's having, then guides them to their corner table, the one that's become unofficially theirs. I have something for you, he says after they're settled. He slides the portfolio across the table. Open it. Inside, Harper finds registration papers for the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, complete financial aid applications, letters of recommendation from professors she studied under years ago, an acceptance letter contingent on completing the application process by the end of the month. I don't understand. Harper's hands shake as she flips through documents. How did you... I contacted your former professors, Dante explains. Explained that a former student was interested in returning to complete her degree, but faced financial obstacles. They were enthusiastic about writing recommendations. Dr. Patricia Brennan specifically mentioned that you were one of the most promising students she'd taught in 20 years. But tuition, I can't afford... There's a scholarship. Dante's expression reveals nothing. New this year, specifically for non-traditional students returning after extended absence due to personal circumstances. It covers full tuition plus a living stipend. Harper stares at him. You created a scholarship. I did no such thing. His voice carries amusement. The Romano Family Foundation created a scholarship years ago. That it happens to perfectly match your circumstances is simply fortuitous timing. Wait until you see what happens next. If you're invested in Harper and Dante's story, drop a comment and hit that like button. We're almost at the end, and you won't want to miss this. Dante, Harper's eyes fill with tears. I can't accept. Why not? You said you wanted to study art history. Here's your opportunity. He leans forward slightly. Don't mistake this for charity. It's investment. The foundation benefits from supporting promising students. You benefit from completing your education. Everyone wins. I don't know how to thank you. Stop thanking me. His voice drops, becoming more serious. Start believing you deserve good things. That's all the thanks I need. They sit in silence for several minutes. Harper processing. Dante waiting with that infinite patience she's come to associate with him. I need to know something, Harper finally says. About us. About whatever this is between us. Ask. Are you waiting for me to be healed so you can, I don't know, claim me? Is this an investment in a future you're expecting? Dante's laugh is genuine and surprised. Harper, I have no expectations beyond hoping you'll continue having coffee with me on Tuesdays. Then what do you want from me? I want you to be the version of yourself you were meant to be before Derek convinced you that you should be small and quiet and grateful for breadcrumbs of affection. Dante reaches across the table, covering her hand with his. I want you to go back to school and argue with professors about Renaissance perspective techniques. I want you to paint terrible abstract pieces and hang them in your apartment anyway. I want you to take up space in the world and believe you deserve to be there. And then what? Then nothing. Or then everything. Or then we continue having coffee on Tuesdays and Sunday brunch in the occasional evening, when you want company that doesn't demand anything from you. His thumb traces patterns over her knuckles. I'm not Derek, Harper. I don't need to control your future to feel powerful. Your freedom doesn't diminish me. Your strength doesn't threaten me. Your success would only make me proud to know you. Harper realizes she's crying. Again, she seems to cry a lot around Dante Romano. But these aren't tears of pain or fear. These are tears of recognition, of finally understanding what it means to be cared for without conditions. I think I'm falling in love with you, she whispers, and it terrifies me. It should. Dante's expression remains serious. Love is terrifying when you've been hurt the way you've been hurt. But Harper, falling in love with me is significantly less dangerous than making lattes for 8 hours while Derek systematically destroyed your sense of self. That's a very low bar. It's also true. He stands, extending his hand in their familiar gesture. Walk with me. Let me show you that scary and dangerous aren't the same thing as harmful. They walk through Chicago's summer evening, past the river where lights reflect off water like scattered jewels, through Millennium Park where tourists take photographs of Cloudgate, to the Art Institute where Dante produces 2 tickets from his pocket and guides her inside. They wander galleries in comfortable silence. Harper points out details in paintings, the way light falls, the symbolism hidden in background objects, the techniques that reveal an artist's unique hand. Dante listens with genuine interest, asking questions that prove he's done more than just skim that Renaissance art book. In front of Nighthawks, Edward Hopper's iconic painting of late-night isolation, Harper stops. I used to feel like this, she says quietly, like I was visible but untouchable, present but not really there, surrounded by people but fundamentally alone. And now? Now I feel like maybe I'm climbing out of that glass case. She turns to look at him. Because of you. Because you saw me when I was invisible and decided I was worth saving. You saved yourself? Dante corrects. I just happened to be the person you texted. But Harper, you're the one who had the courage to ask for help. You're the one who walked away. You're the one who's choosing to heal instead of staying broken. They leave the museum as it closes, walking back toward Harper's apartment through streets growing dark. At her building's entrance, Dante stops. I won't come up unless you explicitly ask me to, he says. Not tonight. Not any night. Because consent matters in all contexts, and I need you to know that your space is yours alone unless you choose to share it. Harper looks at this man who broke down bathroom doors, but respects locked apartment doors, who can destroy enemies but kneels beside dining room chairs, who creates scholarships and arranges apartment leases, and never once suggests she owes him anything in return. "Come up," she says. Not for anything except company, but come up. Let me make you terrible coffee in my cheap apartment and show you the really bad painting I've been working on." "Your coffee isn't terrible." "I work in a coffee shop. Trust me, I know terrible coffee." Upstairs, Harper makes coffee that is indeed terrible, somehow both too weak and too bitter simultaneously. She shows him the painting she's been working on, an abstract mess of blues and grays and sudden strikes of red that might be anger or might be hope or might be both. "It's extraordinary," Dante says, and means it. They sit on her secondhand couch and drink terrible coffee and talk about nothing important until Harper realizes she's fallen asleep against his shoulder. She wakes to find him still there, still present, still waiting for her to decide what happens next. "Stay," she whispers. "Just stay." "Always," he responds. "For as long as you want me." 6 months later, Harper Mitchell stands in a gallery showing her own work. Not abstract trauma paintings, though those pieces have their place. Real art. Careful studies of Renaissance techniques reinterpreted through modern lens. Paintings that demonstrate what she's learned in her first semester back at SAC. Her mother came. Natalie came. Dr. Marchetti and Vincent both made appearances. Sophia brought flowers. The gallery is full of people celebrating Harper's return to art, her return to herself, her return to believing she deserves to take up space. Dante arrives late, still wearing his work suit, looking every inch the dangerous man he is. But when he sees Harper's paintings on gallery walls, his expression softens into something she's learned to recognize as pride. "You did it," he says when he reaches her side. "We did it," Harper corrects. "I couldn't have..." "No," he cuts her off gently. "You did this. I just gave you space to remember who you were meant to be." They stand together in front of her largest piece, a reinterpretation of Caravaggio's Judith beheading Holofernes, but with Judith painted as a modern woman in jeans and a cast, Holofernes bearing Derek's face in the moment of his defeat. "Subtle," Dante observes. "I was never good at subtle." "No, you weren't." He takes her hand. "That's one of the things I love about you." Harper turns to face him directly. In the 6 months since her cast came off, they've built something real. Not a rescue fantasy, not a debt repayment. A genuine partnership between two people who see each other clearly and choose each other anyway. "I love you too," she says, in case that wasn't clear. It was clear. Dante's smile carries warmth she never imagined that first night in her bathroom. But it's nice to hear it anyway. Outside, Chicago's winter evening is cold and clear. Inside, Harper Mitchell stands in a gallery showing her art, her arm healed, her life rebuilt, her future expanding in ways she never dreamed possible. All because she sent a text to the wrong number, and the right person answered. Did this story touch your heart? If Harper and Dante's journey moved you, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment sharing your favorite moment. Your support means everything, and it helps me create more stories like this for you. The end.